here we go. All right, Greg, I'll start out with talking about group policy, and if you got questions, type them in here to the chat window, and I'll make sure you get those answered, all right? So essentially here, group policy starts off with, I gotta find the right tool here. I'm not used to doing it in this new version of Illuminate. All right, here we go. Group policy. All group policy is, essentially at the end of the day, is a group of policy settings. Group policy has absolutely nothing to do with groups. That's one of the questions I get asked a lot. So group policies has absolutely nothing to do with a group. Not a thing. Group policy can only be applied to two things. What are the two things I can apply a group policy to? Users and computers. If you've opened up the local group policy tool, you'll see that. If you look inside of a group policy in Active Directory, you'll see that. So group policy, I can apply settings to users and computers. Period. That's it. Nothing else. If I were to bring up my Microsoft Management Console, and then let me go ahead and see if I can share that out here, guys. So here I'm sharing out. I hope you can see it. Give me a green check if you can see this okay. All right, let me try again. Any better? Can you see right in here? So what I'm trying to do here is add in the group policy object editor for my local computer. Still nothing. You're kidding. All right. Alright, tell you what then. I'll just share my desktop. How's that? Now are you guys able to see my group policy object editor? Alright. So in here you'll notice I have user and computer settings. So when people say group policy applies to groups, it doesn't. Because I'll say, where? So in here, all I have are policy settings. Now the biggest components here is group policy allows me to push out software to a computer, or I can push out software to users. On the computer setting, I have the ability to do a lot of configuration for Windows. Yeah, some. And then you have the biggest component of group policy is the administrative templates. If I go down here to user, the amount of user settings really goes up. So I can go and configure, for example, under the Windows settings on the computer, security, this right here is your local security policy. So all of these settings in here are the local security policy. So if you go to the control panel and you click on that, all you're seeing is just a tiny little piece. In fact, I can right click here and say new window from here. That's your local security policy. That's all they've done, is they took that tiny little piece of group policy out of the local policy and says, okay, here's your security settings. Well, yeah, I guess that is your security settings, but that's not all of the settings you can configure. You have your account policies, local policies like auditing, user rights, and other security options. Windows firewall. There's a lot of settings I can configure through the local security policy. But then moving on, the most amount of settings you'll be able to configure is through the administrative templates. So especially on the user side. So I have the ability to go in here and manage control panel settings. And so here I can say, for example, right here I could go and prohibit access to the control panel. So if I look at my start menu now, there's the control panel. If I go here and double click, I can go in and enable. Now read this carefully. Prohibit access to the control panel? Yes. Enable it. Okay. So if I go back to my start menu now, notice the control panel is gone. So when you go in on the local group policy, changes are pretty much instantaneously. So if I go back, there's the control panel back. So group policy, all it's doing is making changes in the registry. That's all it is. Changing settings in the registry. I could allow access to the control panel, but I could go in there and then say only allow access to system display. Only allow access to the user. So you have the ability, or I can go in here and hide specific items. What items do I want to hide? Of course, you have to know the name of the item. So here you see Microsoft.mouse or Microsoft.system or Microsoft.personalization. Those are the different commandlets inside of there. Then I can do a tremendous amount of stuff. Then this is just control panel stuff. Or I can go in here and control desktop settings. So for example, you can see an icon right here. I could go in here and say hide all the items on my desktop and OK it. And as you can see, that worked real well. And I'm grinning. Alright. Well, hiding everything on the desktop didn't take care of it because here's the items that it removed. So, that one didn't do me a bit of good, simply because those items were not on my desktop. Well, I have the recycle bin here. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do that one then. And it's not working very well at all. All right. Something is not quite working like it should, guys. Not like it should at all. But I have other things set up here, all right? So here's the point is this is the local group policy. Policies can be applied at several levels. Can be applied at several settings. So back here in my whiteboard, group policy can be applied. Let's go back in here. Maybe. There we go. So there are 4 levels of group policy settings. Or should I rephrase it as group policy can be applied at 4 levels or locations. And I'm going to close the door. So, do you guys know? Greg, this is something you should know. I think this is probably what you were asking about here with group policy. Where are the locations I can apply group policy at? Where are the locations the first one is the local computer. So I can apply settings at the local computer. And provided it works, alright, unlike my hide all the icons on the desktop. Local computers first. Then you have the site, and that would be the Active Directory site, the Active Directory domain level, and then within an organizational unit inside of Active Directory. Andre, do you have a little sense of what these items are at this point? Local computer is the settings on your own computer. Okay, cool. So, what I could do is I can apply settings to each of these locations. So I can apply settings to each of these locations. And the thing is group policy processes in a very specific order. Very specific order. So if I wanted to have different settings take effect, unless you understand how the order works, then things are not going to go very well. So it would take all of the settings from the local computer, write them all to the registry. Then my computer will query Active Directory and look at what site am I in. Based on what site I am in, and if there are any policies in the Active Directory site, then it's going to go ahead and apply the policies from that site and write those to the registry. Then it'll look in the actual domain. So what domain am I in? The site would be something like Grand Rapids, and then a Lansing site, and a Detroit site. Sites are based on physical locations. So I'm in a domain. I can apply a policy at the domain level. Policies at the domain level affect every single user or computer in the entire domain. So it would take all the policies at the domain level and then write them to my registry. Then it looks at what organizational unit I am in. And then look at all the group policies at that location and then write those settings to my registry. So, here's the question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this stuff here real quick. And then let's go to another slide. And then I'll go ahead and paste again. And the thing is I'm not getting the toolbar that I was using. Change my text size, guys. There we go. Well, I had it. Gotta love not being the most familiar with the new version of the software. Alright, well, I'll just work with the size that I have then at this point. So, I can have a single policy at this location. So I could go in, and let's just give you an example here like I did earlier this week. Let's say I go in and set something to the effect of remove run from the start menu. And then maybe at the site level, I go in and say remove Windows Update. At the domain level, we decide we want to have a policy and we want to remove Internet Explorer. And at the organizational unit, I want to go in and enable run on the start menu. So guys, what settings would I end up with? In the group policy terminology, what would my effective settings be? This, Greg, is where it gets tricky. Just give me the settings. How's that? Tell me what settings I would have. How would my computer be configured? What would I end up with when I sat down and looked at it? Well, they would see run, but that's not all. Well, yeah. I see how you're coming at it, Andre. Correct. Okay? So, what happens when we apply then the local group policy at the local level? It's going to take run away from the start menu and write that in the registry. Then it's going to write the setting at the site level and get rid of Windows Update. At the domain level, it's going to write in the registry to remove Internet Explorer. And at the OU level, it's going to overwrite the setting and turn back on run. Now, by default, you're probably going to have a link to Windows Update. You're going to have Internet Explorer on your computer. So normally those items would be there. So when you process all those settings, run's gone. Windows Update is gone. Internet Explorer gone. Whoops, run is back. You see how that works, Greg? Group policy processes in that order every single time. Local, site, domain, organizational unit. Okay? Should we do another example? Wow. Illuminate is definitely being squirrely. All right. I'm not even able to clear... All right. Let's do another one then. So in this time, let's go ahead and say at the local computer, let's go in. Help me think of a setting, guys. What setting can we get rid of? All right. Remove my, that's a good idea, docs. Then at the site level, what do we do? How about, that's a good idea. Remove my pictures. Keep throwing some ideas out there. So we're going to get, well, we'll remove my picture at the domain level. We're going to go in and remove, well, we can say my computer. We can remove, let's see here, remove my pictures, enable a mugshot for the background, and what else can we do here? That's a good one. Let's yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Remove the taskbar. I just debate. So get rid of the taskbar. Then at the organizational unit, let's go in and disable change password, remove task manager. Let's enable my computer and my docs. So now, guys, what settings would they get? What would be what they call the effective settings? You know, with Windows XP, there are 2,000 plus settings that you can change in group policy. With Office 2003-07, I know there were 2,600 settings just for Office that I can manage. So the processing order is very specific. Good. That looks pretty decent, guys. All right, now let's go and throw another example out here. So we have the local computer. At the then we have the site. Now, why not task manager? Let's see here. Task manager would have been gone. Task manager would have been gone. So, that's okay. Ask, that's what it's for. Now, at each, well, except for the local computer. At the local computer, you have one and only one policy. That's a good thing to take away. You get one setting. That's it. User, computer, only one local policy. However, though, within Active Directory, I can go and add multiple group policies. So at the site level, I could have one GPO, and then a second GPO. At the domain level, I could have a GPO. I could have another GPO. And at the OU level, same thing. I'm going to add another level of complexity. Okay? Now, it's going to get trickier. This one, when I was learning this, guys, threw me for a good, hard loop. Now remember, processing order, always local, site, domain, OU. So when I teach the group policy chapter in a class, I always say it's top down. Group policy is processed top down. However, though, when you start adding multiple group policy objects, you know, in some companies, you may have multiple GPOs. You know, this may have been Dave's, and that may have been John's, and that could have been Bob's, and all kinds of stuff. So different individuals could create different GPOs. Does that make sense? Give me a green check. All right? So now, with that then, guys, could someone theoretically go in and have duplicate settings? Give me a green check. All right, let's look at this then. So let's say we'll just pick at the domain level here. So we'll just say here, Dave created this one, Bob created that one, Greg created this one. So I could have, if I have different admins, I could have different users do different things. So, you know, Dave went in here and he has a policy. Oh, let's see, what should we call it? We'll call it the corporate brand. So we have the corporate desktop brand. So I have a group of settings in here that, for example, I want to have the corporate wallpaper on. So we go and set the background. Set the background image, okay? In fact, I'll change it here. So we set a wallpaper. So set the wallpaper to corporate image. We decided we want to have a certain resolution. So we want to have 1024 by, what is that? 1024 by, it's 8 something. I don't remember the number. Is it 860? Nope, 1024 by 768. Wasn't even close. So 1024 by 768, all right? So we set that as the resolution. And what else do we want to set there? Somebody says, you know what, I don't like the new, starting with Windows XP, I don't like the new start menu, so we want the classic start menu. And then they also says, you know what, we don't need to have games, so we're going to remove any games. What else? Remove games. What else could you see on a start menu that I don't necessarily need? You know, we may not need pictures. So I could, how about remove the pictures? What else? Anybody else think of some things that may be on the start menu that you may not want to have on a music? There you go. Perfect. I forgot about that. Music. Good. Okay? So that's the first GPO. The second, tell you what here then. We're just going to do this. We're going to take those settings and do that. So on the GPO2, here we're going to have the corporate desktop lockdown. We want to lock down the settings on here. So we want to disable power management. I don't want someone playing with the power settings, guys. What else? Let's remove, there you go. Yeah, I don't want people monkeying around changing settings in Windows. Why? That increases cost because now they have to keep constantly calling the help desk. So remove the control panel. Disable the display. That's another one. Disable IE changes, so someone cannot go in and monkey around with our browser that users need to go and do their jobs. Excellent. All right, so that's a good one. And Greg wants to set, I don't know what Greg wants to set, but Greg's going to set a GPO that does something here. Greg decides, because Greg's another domain level admin. Greg decides that he wants to enable the display because he has somebody come stop him in the hall and say, you know, I need to do this. I need to change my resolution a little bit higher. Somebody else, there you go. Somebody else says, I need to go and change this setting in Internet Explorer. I need to have a bigger cache. So they re-enables Internet Explorer settings. And then at the organizational unit, now keep in mind we have multiple OUs within Active Directory, right? Within Active Directory we could have multiple OUs. I'm trying to find the drawing tool here, guys. So within Active Directory here, So here's my domain. Man, I miss my tools. I'm just not used to this. I'm trying to find the little tool I draw with. There we go. So right here, within here, I have my different, I'm just going to draw a folder. These are my organizational units within the domain. So each of these OUs can have their own special set of GPOs. Okay? So when I say site domain OU, when we're talking about the organizational unit, it looks at, well, what organizational unit is Joe Blow in? If Joe Blow's in this OU, they're going to get the OU GPOs for that OU. If their user account is here, they're going to get the GPOs for that OU. Does that make sense? Give me a green check if that makes sense. So when it looks at applying GPOs, it looks at what site you are in. Am I in the Grand Rapids site? Am I in the Detroit site? And it applies the GPOs for Grand Rapids because I'm physically in Grand Rapids. Domain's an easy one. What domain am I in? If I'm in a single domain, that's not a toughie. But the OU, admins create organizational units so we can organize objects. I don't want all of my objects in the user container. So I create organizational units. All right? So now we have some OU guy. And that organizational unit admin they decide, well, let's see here. For GPO number 1, what do we want to do here? We want to disable user account control. That was a good idea. GPO number 2. We want to set a custom background for our department. And then GPO number 3, we have a pretty hip guy. We want to allow users to listen to music on their computer, so we're going to re-enable, enable My Music and allow users to store MP3 data, music files, on their computer. And so during the day, our users can chill. They can sit out there and enjoy some tunes. Maybe they'll get more productive. Are you guys following me where I am at this point? Give me a green check. So far now I've gotten a little complex. All right. So, here's the question. What settings are these users? So I applied the GPO to that GPO. I'm sorry, I applied these GPOs here to this OU. And your user account is in that OU. So my user account is right here. What settings am I going to get? While you guys type that, I'm going to grab something. That's part of it, Greg. You are the user account control won't be there. You're going to have that custom background for your department. You get to listen to some tunes. But that's not all. All right, let me show you something here, guys, because it's tricky at this point. Okay? Because I'll tell you right now, your answers are going to be wrong. I know it. I don't say that to be mean. Here's probably the trickiest part of group policy. Greg, and this is what you asked for, all right? So group policy, remember, processes from the top, the local computer, at the site, domain, OU. Remember, it processes top down. Okay? Make sure you get that. Group policy processes top down. Okay? Get that point. So if I only have one GPO at the site and one at the domain, one at the OU, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out what you get. However, if you have multiple GPOs at a level, like I do at the domain, like I do at the organizational unit, you're going to run into some problems. And the reason you're going to run into problems is this. At that organizational unit level, what it will do, so out here, it processes top down. Okay? Processes top down. Get a little more of that arrow there. However, at each location, so at the domain level, if there are multiple settings, it processes bottom up. If there are multiple GPOs at the OU, it processes bottom up. If there are multiple GPOs at the site, bottom up. So do you catch that? So we start local, site, domain, and OU. But while we're working our way down, we get to the site and we see there are multiple GPOs. It will process GPO 2 first, then 1. Then it works its way down to the domain level. It will apply GPO 3, then 2, then 1. Then at the OU level, 3 and 2 and 1. And that right there is probably one of the most difficult settings and things to remember about group policy. So I'll go back in here real quick. If you have multiple GPOs at a location such as the site, domain, or the organizational unit, then at each level it will process the GPOs bottom up. It's almost, you're absolutely right. No GPOs by date, Greg. Andre says it's almost a hierarchy within each level. Yes. Doesn't matter the date. It's all the order. Now, at each level, you can change the order. I could take GPO number 3 and make it number 1. You have the ability, I'll show you here in a minute. You have the ability to reorder policy settings. Greg, I'm letting you sit here and crunch on it. Are you doing okay with that? Give me some feedback. So essentially here, what we would end up with, and I've been trying to figure out how to get a different color instead of yellow. Not doing so good. I think the last time I did a breakout, I figured it out, but I don't remember what I did. Yeah, and I'm having no luck at all. Found everything but color. All right. So what we would end up with then, obviously you're going to get, and I'm trying to get the highlighter here, we're going to get my music. You're going to get that custom background. User account control is going to be gone. Then, let's see. You're going to be able to change. Nope. Nope. Let's see here. Because that's this one right here. Number 3 would be the first one we're going to process. So you are going to get the corporate image at the domain level, because it's going to process bottom up. Of course, what I should do is highlight the total settings. Hang on a second. So you get my music, custom background, user account controls gone. Let's see here. Since GPO number 3 is going to be processed, and they're enabled to display, so we are going to get the display. Up there we disabled it. And then we're going to get the IE settings. Power management we'll have. We're going to have our control panel will be gone. Let's see here. We have the custom wallpaper. We're going to have that resolution. We're going to have a classic start menu. No games. I'm looking to see if there's anything in here about pictures. And no pictures. So, when a user logs in, the highlighted settings are the ones they're going to have. Did I miss one? Where was no power? Yeah. Right there. No power. All right? This is exactly what you would see in a test, Greg. Now, you may not see something this complex. I don't think you'll see anything this complex for a Windows client exam. But on a server exam, yes, it gets that complex. Now, let me say this. the rules will change. Okay? Let's say that this OU, these settings here, match that OU right there. So now let's change it up. All right? Let's change it up and say, now somebody's logging on from that OU, and there are no settings. There are no GPO settings for that OU. Now what do they get? Or let me ask this. What GPOs, what levels of GPOs would be processed? Or what levels of GPOs would be applied to a user in that OU? Local site and domain. You got it. And then keep in mind then, when we get to the domain, or actually at the site, 2 to 1. At the domain level, 3 to 1. And since there's no OU, we're done. All right. You want to see this in action? Anybody? Okay, cool. All right. I'll go ahead here and share. Let's share Lab on Demand. So let me ask you guys this. Are you guys able, just type into the chat window, can you see Lab on Demand? Okay, cool. All right then, so let's go ahead and log into Windows. Golly. Hope I can remember the password. It's not blank. Nope. There we go. Whew, starting to sweat. Alright, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on Machines. I'm going to go to the Domain Controller. Log into the Domain Controller. I'm going to bring up Active Directory. And so, I'm not going to deal with the site GPO. I'm not going to deal with the... I'm going to create a quick OU. We'll call it 1. I'm going to create an account. Alright, so I have an account in that OU. Let's see if the Group Policy Management Console, it is installed. So here within Active Directory, so here's my domain. At the domain, you have a default policy, a default GPO. And then here you see your different organizational units. And I can tell you there's no other group policies. The only other one I have is the domain controller one. So this here, this default domain policy at the domain level applies to everyone. Now, guys, I cannot see if you type to me. If you have a question, raise the hand. Hopefully I'll hear it beep. And I'll drag the window so I can read what you're writing, all right? So, what I can do, now you can create group policies in multiple ways. I could go to the organizational unit, right-click, and I can say create and link. So I can call it total desktop lockdown. And so what it did is it created the group policy and it linked it to this OU, meaning it's going to affect users or computers that have their objects in that organizational unit. So I could have created another one. We'll create and link a GPO. This one we'll just call 2. Just to let you see, here I have multiple GPOs applied. Now, on the left-hand side, it alphabetizes them. Be careful. Okay? So, numbers first, A all the way down to Z. However, that is not the processing order. Right over here is the processing order. So what it would do is it would apply the local policy first, then the site, then the domain policy here, and when it got to this organizational unit, it would apply that policy first, then that one, and finally that one. So right here are the arrows. I could say, no, I want that policy to be processed last, which means whatever settings are in there win. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you guys, and I just realized it, and it's a big one too. So let me talk about one thing here. By default, unless you have conflicts, which, you know, up above here, that's all you saw was conflict after a conflict. By default, unless you have conflicts, all of those settings will simply merge together. So it would take the settings from the site, the domain, the organizational unit, and just merge them together. However, if there are any conflicts, then, as you've seen here, the last applied setting will win. Okay? That's important to know. That's another good rule. It's been a while since I taught group policy, so I forget those little good gotchas. All right. So let's go back. Let me share my browser. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to demonstrate some settings here. So in the total desktop lockdown, I'm going to go ahead and right click and say edit. And just so you can see here, let's just go to the start menu. And I'm just going to get rid of all kinds of stuff. I'm just turning on a couple more to go. Okay, hang on a second. probably too late. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to delete Total Desktop Lockdown. Now, clicking over here, deleting it, all it does is delete the link. It does not delete the GPO. If you look down here, here's the list of all my group policy objects. Every one you've created in the entire domain will show up in here. So at a moment, I can right-click and go ahead and just link, take an existing one, and say, apply it back to that OU. And it'll be back. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to hit my computer. And let's log off. And I forgot my password. There we go. So I want you to see settings before the GPO applies. Alright? So it looks like I have a full desktop. Tell you what, we'll even go in here and let's go ahead and put in those items. Okay? So not only do I have my recycle bin, but I also have the icons that I know and love. So we'll go ahead and log off. Let's go back to DC1. And just so you can, we'll go ahead and relink Total Desktop Lockdown. And let me go back and keep editing it here real quick. So that was the start menu. Then I could go to the desktop. Let's get rid of everything on the desktop. Control panel, we're going to go ahead and prohibit access to the control panel. Start menu, I'm going to force the classic start menu. Then I can go under systems. Control-Alt-Delete options, we're going to get rid of Task Manager. No lock the computer, no change in the password. I'll be nice. I'll let them log off from there. Let's see here. Shared folders, I'm not going to worry about that. Windows components. So Windows Explorer here, and we'll even say that. Well, let's just have some fun here, and then I'll show you what it does. So I'm just locking down all kinds of settings for this user, or all the users in OU1. Alright, so I'll close that down. Usually that should save it. And then let's go ahead and log into this machine. Alright. Didn't apply it. Yeah, it's starting to. Let's log off and see if I can get the rest of it to apply here a little faster. I can see a difference already. Can you? There's my start menu. That's kind of cool. It's one of my favorite demos to do when I was teaching this back in the day. Of course, I could really affect what you see here too. So how about if I right click? I'm doing it extra loud. No right clicks happening. How about if I go up here and do a Control-Alt-Delete? I can't get Task Manager. I can't do any of the options here in my security dialog box. Pretty much the only thing I can do is log off. How about use Windows R? That won't work remotely that way. That's too bad. So I can't get to Windows Explorer. How about this? Here's a way around it. Let's do a C colon. You can't get to the C drive. How about my documents? And it's going to do something different. That one's still blocked. So I went through there and locked it down pretty good. So, let's go back to DC1. Now, some of the things I can do with the GPO is I could simply right-click the GPO. Notice here the link is enabled. I could disable it. So right now, this GPO is disabled. So if I go back to client 1, let's see what happens. I may need to log on and off here twice. There's some of my start menus. There's some of my settings back. Let's see if I can force it along to go a little faster. Or how about if I right-click and bring up, oh, gee, a right-click's working this time. Task Manager. Oh, there's Task Manager. I just didn't get my icons back yet. Can I go to my C drive? Yep. So all but my icons are back. So just by going in there and disabling the link, took care of that. Now, we'll go in and enable the link. And let's change the name on this one here. Total Desktop Lockdown. And let's go in here and edit this setting here real quick. And we'll go to my desktop. And we're going to have all this stuff here. Now, you have to be careful and read this. Okay? Hide and disable all the items on my desktop. If I enable that, that will do what it says. It will hide and disable everything on my desktop. If I disable that, what will it do? Now, I can't see your reply, but the answer should be, it'll show everything on my desktop. So I'm going to go in and do all the... Now, I turned everything on previously. So now I'm going to go in and disable everything. I hope you're following what I'm doing. Then in the control panel, we'll go ahead here and disable the prohibition. So I'm disabling it from being stopped. Then on, let's see here. Oh, here I forgot these. Prohibit access to the command prompt. I didn't even do this on the total desktop lockdown. I should have, but I didn't. But Task Manager will disable the removal, which means it's going to be there. Then, the last one here will be Windows Explorer. And OK it. All right? Close that down. Click back on OU1. Now, Look carefully. It's going to apply policies from the local, the site, the domain, and the OU. And which one, in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of 2. Which one are you going to get? In fact, I'm going to move this out of the way so I can see your answers. What policy am I going to get at the end of the day here, guys? Anybody? What policy am I going to get? The total desktop lockdown. Okay? So let's try. So I'll go in. Let's log in. Now, remember, not everything takes effect always the first time, or it can take a little time to take effect. So I'm going to log in. That looks okay. Let's go ahead and log off. Let's try it again, just to be on the safe side. And that's interesting. Let's try one more time then. Well, I got a conflict somewhere, guys. Somewhere then. Some of my settings here then are, I guess I should have, instead of flying through them, I should have sat down and read them. As you can see then, I got burned. But, did you see, at least in this case, let me move my window over so I can see your response. Did you see in this example which GPO won? Remember, at the site, bottom up. At the domain, bottom up. At the OU, bottom up. So does that make sense, guys? Now let's flip them. So here I'm going to take the total desktop lockdown and move it to the bottom. Let's go back and look at it. Let's log off. Let's go ahead and log back in. Now if everything works right, didn't apply yet. Can I right click? No? Well, that's working. Let's log off and log back in one more time. There we go. So which GPO won? Which GPO won, guys? Total desktop lockdown is the one that won. So, you guys have questions? Greg, does this help? Andre, you raised your hand and I never heard it beep. If you guys got a mic, feel free to jump on. No problem. I'm pretty well, if Greg is happy with this, I'm pretty well set here too. So I hope you picked up some stuff. But Greg, I'm going to sit here and answer questions. If you got questions, ask. Andre, I'll see you in a week or so. Hang on a second. Greg, do you have a mic on? You do. Hang on a second then. Let me check my audio. I gotta kill my mic to do it. Check, check.
At this time, move the speaker slider to the right to increase the volume, or to the left to decrease the volume.
Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Can you hear me now, Matt?
Yes, I just had to get my mic or my speaker turned up higher.
Okay, I think everything pretty much made sense. One question I would have would be, you have to go top down for the site domain, domain site or local site domain OU.
Yep.
So that means that the bottom one on the OU will win over everything else.
No. No. So at the site, it processes. So remember, it just works its way down, like so. But if there are multiple GPOs at a level, it processes bottom up. If there are multiple GPOs at bottom up. So the one that would win at the OU level, if there were conflicting settings, would be the one at the top.
Correct. Okay. That answers my question. Yeah.
Okay.
I also wondered, at the beginning of this thing, I had confusion of how to get to where you make the group policy and with the local policy with that consent control. I had those confused before, but I think it makes sense to now.
Okay.
So I can't really think of anything else.
Okay. There's a ton to group policy. A ton.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I spoke with the virtual machines myself, and that's what all those group policies too, right? In the labs.
Yeah. I mean, you got a client, you have a server, you can do the same thing I did.